Hey everyone, it's me, HawkeyeG, and I'm here with another video. Today's video is the top 5 quick tips for the Northern Provinces Realms of Chaos campaign in Total War Warhammer 3. With this video, I'm hoping to just give a couple of little specific tips here and there for what you should focus on in this campaign, kind of the important parts that can be easy to overlook, or just really some of the best ways to improve the strength of your campaign without having to talk about it for too long. The Northern Provinces is a little bit closer to the Chaos Wastes and has to deal with the Bastion more directly, but we'll also see that they have some tools to deal with that effectively as well. Now I'll be going through these tips, but of course if you have any advice of your own or you think I missed something, please feel free to let me know in the comments section below. I look forward to hearing from you. Now with that being said, let's get started. So my first tip for this campaign is to try and take control of all of the Bastion gates, right? While it seems pretty obvious you'll want to take this closest gate, it starts the game demolished, you might be thinking that it's better to leave some of these other gates to the allies, right? Let some of these other people take the gates, right? After all, Miao Ying will rush for them as well. If we go and look at his diplomacy page, he's got the Bastion Guardian, so he'll run over there and take them, right? And you think, well, I don't want to commit forces to defend these gates or spend money to upgrade them. However, you really do want to take hold of these. You don't want enemies breaking through without you having any control over it, and more importantly, if you do control these, you'll get all the money and experience for defeating the endless waves thrown at you by the Kurgan warband. You can easily get significant upkeep reduction for armies in the Bastion as well, so even if you have to keep an extra army stack in there, it'll still probably be worth it for you overall. Now, tip number 2 is to take over the Warpstone Desert. When you start either Cathay campaign, both factions start out at war against these Dissenter Lords of Jinshen, right? So that means that you and Miao Ying have the same potential land holdings from the start of the game. Therefore, I think it's important to focus on taking over this province if you can, because it'll give you an early advantage in power, and that'll help carry you through the rest of the game. It'll kind of deny him some territory, and basically this is territory that can go either way. You want to have it, right? You don't want to give it away to them. If you can help it, they'll still do fine without it. Plus, the Warpstone Desert is a valuable province, and it's easy to defend as well. It'll expose you to these ogres to the south, but a little bit of diplomacy will solve that problem, and at worst, you just have one choke point that you really have to worry about, but we've got some good resources here, we've got some landmarks here, so there really is a lot of value to be had by taking this province. Now my third tip is to focus on friendships and confederations. Playing as the Northern Provinces, you'll be closer to factions like the Jade Wardens, Imperial Wardens. You'll be closer to factions like the Imperial Wardens and the Celestial Loyalists. The Celestial Loyalists in particular have not only the most valuable province of Cathay, they also tend to have a lot of territory. They do okay against the internal enemies as well, and this is where holding the gates for yourself really helps them not have to worry about managing 2 different frontiers at once. Because they usually have better control over their larger territory, it's important to focus building positive relationships with them and then confederating them once it's available. And, as we can see, it usually doesn't take very long for them to make some kind of mistake or for you to build up enough strength of your own in order to be able to confederate them anyway, so you can take control of this stuff pretty early on in the game. Now, my number 4 tip is to take higher tier missile units as soon as possible. This one should be a little more obvious if you're not familiar with it. Miao Ying has 50% upkeep reduction for missile infantry units. It's one of the things that I talk about in my faction specialties video, but this means that your higher tier units will be as expensive as basically a full tier below them, right? Even if we look here, we can see Jade Warrior Crossbowmen with shields cost about the same as Peasant Long Spearmen, right? So whenever you can, and as soon as you can, you want to upgrade your troops to the highest level you can, your missile infantry troops specifically. Being able to replace these kinds of units when you get the opportunity, it'll be really effective because they'll be very cost effective and will give you a lot of increased power and allow you to move through the campaign quite a bit faster. So something to keep in mind. Now a 5th tip that I have here is to consider building internal defenses. Because of how the Rifts and Realms of Chaos campaigns work, you'll eventually have to send your legendary lord away. You can see it's on turn 31 here, and usually the Rifts spawn very shortly after, if not even a little before. In my campaigns, This typically happens close enough to the time that you are ready to or have already confederated some of these northern factions. When this happens, what you want to do is build some defensive buildings in some of these isolated territories in order to prevent yourself from losing them. You probably won't have the forces to be able to actually attack. See, if we look here, they've got enough defenses here, plus if they bring this army back, I wouldn't actually be able to hold this settlement. So you want to be able to set yourself up to basically position yourself appropriately and buy time for your lord to move through the first rift or realm of chaos and make it back out the other side. Once they return, then you can focus on kind of cleaning up whatever enemies remain in the territory that's left over. But I do find that this is one of the key aspects of Cathay campaigns in general. There's usually some sort of small problem that comes up right around the time that the rifts open, and with your lord out of the picture, you may not have the tools to deal with it. Being willing to wait on capturing the last settlement or two of an opposing minor faction can help prevent these small problems from becoming big problems by making an overcommitment to something that really doesn't matter as much in the short span of time. Now, a little bonus tip I want to give here that is related to the last tip we just talked about is to deny rift spawnings. What I suggest is, once you've got these territories cleaned up, I would swap out the defense building that you had and put in the protection building, which will prevent chaos rifts from appearing in the province. Now, you can see I don't have it here yet, and we're on turn 61. I know a general idea of where the rifts are going to spawn, but what I'm doing is I'm going to position armies to deal with the rifts, and then once they've all spawned, I can kind of decide from there, okay, well, do I really want to leave an army or a hero sitting, in some of these fringe provinces in order to deny the rifts, or would I rather just have that protection building and be able to prevent the rifts from spawning entirely? That's just an extra little tip. It's not too hard to spam out some heroes and close the rifts out directly that way, but I think it's easier to just prevent them from appearing. That way you can focus on, maybe even if you know there's a rift that spawns here, here, and here, then you could just have one army in that area, clean up all of the rifts before they spawn out any armies or cause too much corruption to spread, and make a little money that way, but without having to spend the extra time and attention, spamming out heroes or running your armies around just to deal with a single portal. Now, with that being said, I've given 5 tips, a bonus tip, so of course we've reached the end of this little guide. If you'd like to know more about the full campaign and get some more in-depth tips, I'll be putting out a more complete Northern Provinces guide next, and I'll be sure to link to that from this video as well. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something useful from it. I have found the Cathay campaigns to be a bit easier than the Kislev ones. They have very strong campaign mechanics. They have very easy territory to hold and build choke points on. The Northern Provinces do have to come face to face with chaos earlier on, and it can be somewhat challenging in the early stages of the game, but once you get through the first 30 turns or so, things become a lot easier to manage, especially if you prioritize taking the gates and confederating some of these other friendly factions. Now, if you did enjoy the video, please remember to like and subscribe. And if you have any other questions or have some tips of your own, leave them in the comments section down below. Other than that, thank you for watching, have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.